the music.
Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome, everyone. All right, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. So I am really excited to have everyone here today and super excited for you all to be here. And we want this to be a great opportunity for you to engage with us. So my name is Misty Frazier. I am the Assistant Director for Internships here at A&M San Antonio in the May Center. And this is part of our internship week where we are exploring internship possibilities and paths and helping you to plan out what would make you a great success for internships. And I am so excited to have a major partner with us today and someone who does so much for the community and so much through Randolph Federal Credit Union. So it is my pleasure to introduce the VP for Human Resources at Randolph Federal Credit Union, Mr. Glenn Ehrholt. So thank you so much for joining us, Glenn. We're glad you are here.
Thank you so much, Misty. Appreciate it. I am always grateful to work with Texas A&M San Antonio. I know you and I have worked together for several years in person before COVID, and that didn't slow us down at all. We were able to continue to offer new options, if you will, for students across San Antonio, and one of our very first events, students across Texas, to help them to be definitely more competitive for their employment opportunities that were in front of them. So I am also humbled and grateful and so appreciate the things that you do for the students. And I'm glad to be here, if you will, and appreciate the time and the music, and thank you for managing this, and most important, thank you also for the invitation.
Yes,
so it's always really good to join you and your team and your growing campus. My goodness, every time I turn around, I hear some wonderful news about the new initiatives that your campus is undertaking. And so, boy, we already seen some great things, but there's so many wonderful things to come. So that's awesome.
That's right. Yeah, that is one of the exciting things about being here at A&M San Antonio, and also to just the things we get to provide for our students, and events like this definitely make a huge difference. Well, students, we want this to be a time for you to interact and engage with us, like we said. So feel free to turn on your camera, unmute. We'd love to hear your questions as the presentation goes through. We are recording this, and it will be on our YouTube channel later on for you to access. And remember, because what we're going to talk about today is how to be the competitive candidate. So everybody wants to know the best ways and the most important things that you can do to stand out, because it's competitive out there, and we want you to have the best opportunities. And so we're so grateful that Glenn is here to share all of his knowledge and all of his time working and hiring and recruiting. He knows the best way to do it. And even in this virtual world that we're in, he's got some great tips and suggestions for you all. So if you would like to introduce yourself, feel free to turn on your camera and say hi, or you can put in the chat too. We'd love to know your major, maybe when you're graduating. And then, like I said, throughout, feel free to ask any questions in the chat, or just to unmute as well. But I'll go ahead and hand it on over to you, Glenn, to start your presentation.
Thank you, Misty. And just some additional things I wanted to share at the end. I'll provide my contact information, and I provide it for a reason. I'm always open to engage and have any work with students. It's something that I really thrive on, if you will. So at the end, I will provide my contact information. My doors are always open. I'm here to help in any way I possibly can. So before I get to the presentation, what I'm going to share with you is information that I believe and that I've gathered over the years through many years of completing interviews, many years of looking at resumes, many years of making phone calls to candidates that potentially would be interested in employment opportunities for the organizations that I work with. So I'll also talk a little bit about RBFCU. So with that, Misty, I'm going to get my slide up and running. So if you could just guide me to make sure that you've got everything we need. How does that look?
All right. Yep, it looks great. I'm excited. Here we
Fantastic.
go.
Well, the presentation today is how to be a competitive candidate. More importantly, how to be the competitive candidate. We want you to incorporate some of these things, these concepts that, again, have been developed over and observed over many years of supporting individuals in the community. I have, in my career, done thousands of interviews. I've made, oh my goodness, thousands of phone calls. And so one of the things that I realized, and probably just a couple of years ago, where I stepped back from some of the responsibilities I have in doing so many interviews and managing all the recruiting, if you will, I realized that one of the things that was important to me, my mission, my passion, my commitment to the community was helping students, veterans, anybody that needed help with the guidance of RBFCU to be a more competitive candidate. I have interviewed and hired and helped to have hired thousands, but I've also turned down 10 times more people than I've ever hired. 10 times. And think about it. Let's put it in perspective. If companies put out there that they're looking to recruit and hire for a position, you've got that job posting. We call it also a requisition. That's what they're looking for. Then they're going to put the requirements. And many times you definitely get 1, 2, 10, 15, 20, sometimes hundreds of applicants for some of those postings. If they only have one opening for that position, you hire one person and you turn down everybody else. It's tough for a recruiter. It's not an easy thing to do. It is, you always want to find the most competitive candidate, a candidate that is a good fit or the best fit for the position and that meets the requirements. And also we want to make sure that we're the best fit for the candidate, for their career, not a job, for their career. And so after years of doing interviews behind closed doors, day in and day out for hours, I realized I need to get out of the office. I need to get out in the community. I needed to help those to be more competitive, to tell their story, to tell their journey, to get on the path of growth and to follow their passions. And so that's how this presentation in collaboration with Misty over the past several years has been developed, if you will. So my goal to you is I'm going to look to make you a more competitive candidate, but I can't do it alone. We don't want you to do it alone. We can do it together, but you're going to have to work on it as well. So with that, let's talk about some of the things that we're going to discuss. First of all, I'm going to give you just a brief overview of RBFCU, where we are, how we're growing, things that we're doing. I'm going to give you some concepts that you're familiar with, I'm sure. 3 tools to help you to build your brand, how to market yourself, where to look and find new career opportunities, applicant tracking systems. We call them ATSs. How can I maximize the ATS? How can my application get noticed? And then the interview life cycle. I think it's important for each of you to understand sort of what recruiters go through as they post a position for the company, whatever the company is they're recruiting and hiring. There's typically a traditional interview life cycle, application life cycle for positions that are posted. And then let's talk a little bit about the current employment market and opportunities that are available today, especially after all the challenges we've gone through. And so that's really the things that we're going to talk about. So with RBFCU, where are we? RBFCU is in the state of Texas. We've been in business for more than 60 years. The company has continued to grow. I've been with RBFCU for a little over 11 years, and it's hard to believe it's been a little over 11 years. it's just flown by. My goodness. Especially the last 2 years have definitely gone by very quickly. And so we're in San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Plano, Frisco, Allen, Fort Worth, New Braunfels, and Corpus Christi. And in fact, we just opened. We're in the process of opening a new branch. Um, it's going to be called South San Antonio branch, and so we're excited that a new branch is going to be opening up here shortly as we continue to support communities that are underserved by financial institutions. And that is the number one way that RBFCU grows. Many years ago, RBFCU started as a military credit union. It's sort of still in our DNA at Randolph Air Force Base and Brooks Air Force Base. We had two branches and we merged many, many years ago. But as we've grown, this is Military City, USA, right? This is so many wonderful companies support the military and the things that they're doing. And so that's really how we were growing, but it sort of created this cap to how we could grow. And one of the other things is as we started opening branches in communities where some of our military members and civil service members lived, we were getting a lot of requests from these communities about, what does it take for me to be a member? How can I be a member of RBFCU? We want to take advantage of the products and services that you offer. RBFCU is not for profit. So many times our products and services are very, very, very competitive in the financial services marketplace, if you will. And so after many requests, the decision was made to open our field of membership and to serve communities underserved by financial institutions. And that happened more than 15 years ago. But since I've been with the company, RBFCU has tripled in size, tripled with the assets under management. When I started, we had about 3.5 billion in assets. Today, just before the pandemic, we had just surpassed 10 billion in assets. Through the pandemic, we are much closer to 15 billion in assets than we are to 10 billion. So the growth has continued even over the last 2 years, if you will, in this virtual environment. Employees, when I started, we had about 650 employees. Today, we're closer to 2,200 employees. Members, about 350,000, and we're very close to meet a membership plateau of 1 million members at RBFC. So the growth has continued. What I'm excited about is not only the more than 60 branches throughout the communities that I've shared, but within RBFCU, many of the departments have grown significantly. We've added new departments from data analytics to information technology, to security analysts, to desktop support, to branch operations, consumer lending, central operations, HR. There are so many different departments and positions that we have added over the last 11 years. It's just exciting. Here's the other exciting part is that we've also added levels of opportunities within each one of those different positions. So the growth continues. And so as somebody joins RBFC, one of the things that's important is that we want you to continue to grow. So for positions that we have outside that we're recruiting and hiring for internally, we also have internal positions, because if somebody wants to continue to grow, obviously that first position they have with RBFCU is just the beginning. It's that first step on the path, not your first step in the door or foot in the door. You hear this all the time. I want to get my foot in the door. We don't have any foot in the door positions. We have positions that allow you to get your foot on the path of growth and opportunity. That's the way I look at it. So with that, that's a little bit about RBFCU. The growth continues here in San Antonio and beyond. And again, we are only in the state of Texas. So let's get into it. Let's talk about some of these things that are going to help you to be a more competitive candidate. And you've all heard about an elevator pitch, the job description, and your resume. Hopefully at this point, you have practiced your elevator pitch. You've started to look at job descriptions that are posted, on Handshake or on Indeed.com or Glassdoor. There's so many different websites that are out there. And I hope at this time you've had a chance to put together a resume. Why are all these so important? How do they all have an impact? Because this is the first step. This is part of the interview life cycle, if you will. This is part of the application life cycle, and it's part of you demonstrating your commitment to the job that you're interested in. Your elevator pitch. It's your mini commercial, right? It's your very quick mini commercial. Sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes it's a little shorter, but you've got to practice it. You've got to be prepared when you meet somebody virtually to tell them your story, what you're doing, what you're passionate about, what type of employment opportunities you are interested in, how to stay in contact, and how to come across as somebody they can see talking with, recruiting, maybe even working with. It's your chance sometimes to leave that impression of somebody that they can work with. And that's what that mini commercial is, that mini elevator pitch, that mini commercial. So how do you practice that? I always say, you've got your phones. We all have your phones. If we were doing this in person at this point, Misty and I would get you to share your phones, right? And we would ask each of you to record each other and practice this elevator pitch. And we're looking for the tone. We're looking for the inflection, the professionalism in your voice. And it changes, right? And sometimes you got to do it very quick, and sometimes you may have a little bit longer. But you also have to be prepared with some questions that you may want to ask somebody who, with an employer potentially you want to work with. So I'm going to encourage each of you to maybe have a friend or family member that can record your elevator pitch. And it's not going to be perfect. It never is the first time. But for you, it's going to be your first baseline of improvement. And so I say, before you maybe go into an interview, take a look at that elevator pitch, listen to what you sounded like, and think, how can I make it better? Elevator pitch, critical and important. And you can still do this in this virtual environment. With an elevator pitch, I joke, if you're on an elevator with me, and I'm thinking Misty as well, we're probably talking to you. I always say, break the ice first. If you go to an interview, if you will, and you're virtual or in person, say hello first, break the ice, let them know that you're somebody that can engage in the conversation. Job description. Let's talk about this job description. And I hear this so many different presentations. They say, tailor your resume to the job description. Why? Why is that important? You hear it all the time. The reason it's because it's the answers. The job description is the answer to the quiz. Company says, this is what we're looking for. This is the job that we need to fill. Here it is. Here's exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, maybe even some of the resources you need to get it done. And then they include the answers to what it takes to get this done, the requirements. The job description talks about what they're looking for, but also what they're looking for in a candidate who will be competitive, the requirements. So if you tailor your resume to the requirements of the job description, you're helping the recruiter and the hiring manager identify the most competitive candidate. So what does that mean? Tailor your resume to the job description. So at the very top of everybody's resume, you see the name, contact information, phone number. That's a given. All of our resumes have that. What I say below that is include your career objective. So how do you tailor your resume specifically to a certain position that you're interested in? Put the name of the position and the company that you're applying with. That way we're not guessing. We know exactly what you want to do, and hopefully you've already applied for that position. I usually use a consumer lending position as an example. So if you're applying to a consumer lending position with Randolph Brooks, in my career objective, it would say something along the lines of, my career objective is to obtain a consumer lending position with Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union, where I can utilize my experience, education, my customer service passion to meet the growing needs of the organization. Put the name of the position in the company. I will tell you, hiring managers and recruiters, they like that. They're like, okay, this is pretty, they know exactly what you're looking to do. Don't make us guess. And in fact, the reason I say that is because if a recruiter and hiring manager is looking at a resume, just yesterday I was on a presentation and they said it takes about 6 seconds for the recruiter and hiring manager to look and review and assess a resume. and to decide if they're going to read further or move on. 6 seconds. Have them keep reading. Name of the position and the company. That will get their attention. Now, if the requirements say, so again, name, contact information, phone number. Below that, I always say career objective. And if you're going to tailor your resume to some of the requirements, maybe include some bullet points, summary of qualifications. If it says you need 3 years of financial services experience, right, as a bullet point, and you've got 5, you put 3 years on the job description, and then next to it, you put, I have 5. If it says, maybe it says you need a degree, then you put a degree and list what the degree is in. Again, look for ways to highlight your experience and your qualifications on the resume. Get the attention at the very top with career objective. I had this question just the other day. Somebody said, well, how can I do all that if I keep my resume just to 1 page? Look, the more experience you have, the more difficult that becomes. If you get my attention at the very top of the resume, I don't care how long your resume is. I'm going to keep reading. So I'm not as concerned with the length of your resume. I'm more concerned with how you tailored the resume to the job description, and that you include every single position that you've been in, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the job you're applying to. And here's the reason why. Sometimes it's not about the company you work for. Sometimes it's about what you learned in those positions that helped you to continue to move on. My early career, I worked at a golf course. I worked cutting grass and mowing greens, weed eating, all those things. But that was my journey. That's where I realized I wanted more. So again, resume, career objective, include every single position that you've worked in, be able to tell the story about those roles and responsibilities, not what you did, but what you learned. Because if you do have gaps in your employment, a good recruiter and hiring manager is going to say, what did you do? What did you do during this time? I, like many of you, worked my entire time through college. I worked part-time at the golf course I talked about. And it was a lot of work, no doubt about it, but it helped me to continue to move forward and to succeed on that career path. So everything. I always encourage, if you've done any community initiatives, maybe you've done some volunteer work with Texas A&M San Antonio within the community, include those things. If you're part of any clubs, any fraternities, sororities, whatever it is, these things are important as well. And it helps to define you as a candidate. And these are things that hiring managers and recruiters will read if you get their attention at the very top. At this point, usually, I've had candidates that had said, well, I don't put my career objective at the very top of the page. And the reason why is because I include a cover letter. Well, that's fantastic. But from my experience, 90% of the applicants I've seen have not included a cover letter. They don't include it because why? It's not required. Again, if it's not required, but there's an opportunity for you to include a cover letter, again, be that more competitive candidate, include a cover letter. Be part of the 10% that does. If I see a cover letter, I read it, I share it, I talk about it. The cover letter is not a whole letter. It's a good, solid paragraph that says, this is what I've done. And this is why I want to bring what I've done to your company. And it gives you an opportunity to include maybe a few nuggets of information that you've gathered about the company, if you will. So again, cover letter, critical, and then it aligns with your career objective that you've included on the other top of the page. I think it's critical, important. It'll definitely help you to get noticed. When you have a chance to do all this, and I'm sorry, I'm giving you a little homework at this point, right? But once you've done this and you submit your application and you submit your resume, then most of the time what's going to happen is you're going to get a call from a recruiter or hiring manager, so you can elaborate a little bit more on that. One of the things I think is important, it goes along with your elevator pitch, is we want you to talk about what you want to do and why. So you've got to really think about this. Tell me what you want to do and why. Because during an interview, it's going to be one of the very first questions we ask. Why do you want this job? Why do you want this job? Why do you want to work here? You've got to tell this story. You've got to share this information. And it has to come across as not just an understanding, but it has to come across as believable, if you will. And that's why I say, don't talk at me, talk with me. It's the tone and inflection. It's the things that you bring up. It's the stories that you tell related to your purpose for pursuing your career in this employment opportunity. So don't talk at me, talk with me. So what does that mean? What sort of examples can I provide you? Hopefully several of you have had a chance. Maybe you need some customer service and maybe you've had to call one of one of the companies you work with. I hope everybody who's on the phones or virtually is engaging and they're really committed to, helping you out in any way they can. But sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes you'll get, somebody that's working in a phone center and maybe they're not having a good day. Maybe it's call after call after call. And you can tell based on the tone and inflection and pace of their voice that they can't wait for you to get off the phone, right? They can't wait for this conversation to end. They're talking at you. They're not talking with you. So during an interview, that connection, that communication, that discussion, that story, that journey that you're describing is critical and important because that's where the magic happens in an interview. They're getting to know you, but when they say, what is your career objective and how does this consumer lending position tie into your career objective? The stories that you tell and how you've done your research about what the company has done and why this position is so important to you is going to make the difference. It'll make the difference, no doubt about it. I usually talk about passion. I've had so many people say when I've asked a question about why this position, they'll say, well, I have a passion for customer service. I have a passion for IT. I have a passion for HR. So my question, and that's when you have to get ready for, not the first one, is where did the passion come from? Why did you decide to pursue a career in business administration or IT or development or whatever it is? Why did you start that? Where was it? What moment in time did you realize you wanted to be an accountant or you wanted to commit your career to be an accountant? Tell us when that took place, the moment and second if you can, because then we believe you. Then you step out from the pack, from the others that say, I've always had an interest. I've always liked numbers. Tell us where it began. When you're able to do that, it's believable. That's where the connection takes place. One of the other things that happens when recruiters and hiring managers are calling you, they're going to ask you several questions, and you've got to really be ready to answer the questions. So you've got to have practiced, hopefully, interviewing and work with career services. They do a wonderful job, or to some of the other employers that do mock interviews and resume reviews. All of these three elements that I've shared with you, the elevator pitch, the job description, and your resume, right? They all give you an opportunity to leave a first positive. Somebody said, first positive impression. Yes, first positive. But let's take it one step further. First, positive, memorable impression. You want them to walk away with saying, okay, I can see myself working with this person. They're friendly, they're engaged, they've done their research. I like how they tailored their resume to the job description. And I know why they have a passion for maybe the company and organization they're applying with, and more specifically, the career path and journey that they're on. Leave that first positive, memorable impression. Whenever you begin the interview process and you identify this company that you're looking for and you're interested in applying for those positions, before you start the interview process, so it's always this ongoing research, use your network before the interview. Talk with somebody potentially who has worked there. If it's a position at RBFCU, I'm always open to talk about RBFCU, and Misty knows that. I'll talk about RBFCU every day. but be prepared for that phone interview also. There's only one reason that a recruiter and hiring manager, is calling you after you've submitted your application. Yes, they're going to do a phone interview, but at the end of the day, based on how you prepare and present during that phone interview, they want to bring you in for a in-person interview. They want to set you up for a live interview, even in this virtual environment. But they still, most of the time, they're going to call you over the phone. So think about it. One of the things we talked about is how to leave a first positive, memorable impression. Many times you can do that if you're there. What happens if you're not there? What happens right now if somebody's calling you right now, calling you because you've already started to apply for positions and you are being very professional and you're not going to pick up your phone because you're listening to Misty and Glenn from RBFCU, who talks way too much, because I've interviewed thousands and turned down 10 times more people than I've hired. I want you to get this next job, but you're not going to pick up the phone because you're part of this presentation today. You're listening. So if you're not there to pick up the phone, what happens? It goes to voicemail. So each of you right now, I want you to think about your voicemail. What does it sound like? Is it going to leave that first positive, memorable impression? Is it going to make me want to call you back? Think about it. Think about your voicemail. Why is that important? I'm going to tell you. So if it isn't set up, you got to set it up. If it is your voice, but it's just, hey, this is Glenn, leave a message, not good enough. If it is your voice and it's, hey, this is Glenn, you know what to do, not good enough. So when you listen to your voicemail or you set it up, listen to it again. I want you to listen to your new voicemail as a recruiter or hiring manager. What's the impression you get when you listen to your own voicemail? Is this somebody I can work with? Is this somebody that's upbeat, positive, motivated, professional? Is this somebody that you want to call back? Put yourself in the position of a recruiter and hiring manager. Did you leave a first positive, memorable impression when you're not there to do it yourself? Somebody said, is that important? Well, you can talk to some of my friends at USAA and directors of HR with some of the healthcare industry who did not have their voicemail set up. The other reason it's important is because 85% of the time, if a recruiter hiring manager calls and it's not set up and you've applied to a position, if it's not set up, if it's not engaging, they're not sure if they've called the right number, they don't call back 85% of the time. So please set it up today. Don't tell your friends or family that you're doing it. If they hear this new voicemail and they say, Misty, I like your new voicemail, that sounds great. If your friends and family like your new voicemail, and they're pretty honest, I know they'll be honest. If they like it, don't you think a recruiter and hiring manager will like it even more? I think that's important. Let's say that, a recruiter and manager, and you tell your friends, hey, I've applied for a position at RBFCU, and they say, hey, wow, I've heard good things about Randolph. I hope you get the job. In fact, I heard, this is the recruiter in me, I heard they were just rated the #1 company in San Antonio to work for by the San Antonio Business Journal. And we're humbled and grateful. And it wasn't Glenn and HR saying, hey, we're so good, look at this. Those ratings are from the employees and surveys that they complete. But for you, they're your #1 fans. But each of you are your #1 marketing representative. Show the hiring manager and recruiter what you've got. Make that impression. It will make a difference. Now, one of the other things I talk about is, let's say that they're calling you, right? They want to set up this in-person interview. They're going to ask you information about your resume, the career objective, why you've applied for this position. So it's going to be important. This is probably one of the #1 missed questions in an interview. And it goes something a little like this. What is your career objective? And how, again, the consumer lending is an example. How does the consumer lending position tie into your career objective? And so this bullet point says interview for the position you're in the room for, not the next. So what does that mean? That means if you've applied to, again, the consumer lending position at RBFCU, your career objective is to get that job. Your career objective is to do everything you can to be the most competitive, successful consumer lending representative that we've hired. Talk about that job and what you're going to do in that job, how you're going to be successful, how you can contribute to the team and the company and the department and the members. Don't talk about the next job. Please don't say, oh, my career objective is to get my foot in the door in this position, and then I may be, then I'm interested in moving into management or marketing or web development or something like that. No, we're focused on this job. So I say never, ever step over the job you've applied to. Step into it, embrace it. Tell us how you're going to be the best consumer lending representative. My career objective is to get the consumer lending position. I saw this posting. I looked at the job descriptions and the requirements that I meet. My career objective is to contribute to the organization in this role, so my contributions can be recognized and I'll have a chance to stay and grow with the company. If you're a great competitive candidate for this position, the expectation is you will stay and grow and you will advance within this role. We do have levels of growth opportunities with all of our position, and maybe it does lead to supervision or management. But if you tell the manager who's probably in the room interviewing with you or the supervisor that you want their job, that may not happen. Interview for the position you're in the room for, not the next. Number one, most missed question in an interview. Don't get ahead of yourself. The other thing is, let's talk about this virtual interview platform, if you will, what we're in. Make sure that you prepare for it, minimize distractions, be unique, show initiative. Maybe you have your background that's set up. Make sure the audio and video is working appropriately. Make sure you tell friends and family that, hey, by the way, listen, I've got an interview from this time to this time. If you could, please, help me out to minimize distractions. I will tell you, sometimes you can do all of this and sometimes it just doesn't work. I usually about this time, somebody will ring my doorbell or start talking at home or something along those lines. I had that happen a couple times. But you have to show the initiative to do this. Show the initiative. That's an interesting one. I had a candidate that I was talking with, and what they did is actually put together a couple slides for the hiring manager or the recruiter. And so they said, well, I've got my resume and slides, but I also have a couple of questions. And so I found it quite appropriate, if you will, that they had a couple questions that were already there and they had it on the slides, because at the end of the interview, what we always do and ask, do you have any questions for us? So I thought it was pretty neat. It showed initiative on their part, but they were also engaged in the interview process. Consider it, think about it. At the end of the interview, always take time to say thank you. Misty, I know you and I talked a little bit about this just earlier. I've been on a lot of handshake presentations and interviews and one-on-one meetings with the career fairs that are taking place all over San Antonio in the 14 colleges and universities. And something I thought was pretty eye-opening, and I really liked it, to be honest. It got my attention, is if you have these one-on-one sessions through handshake with a recruiter, in whatever the virtual environment is, look for ways to say thank you. So through handshake, Misty, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is a way for students to see the email address of the presenter. So you can, contact them through that handshake system and just say a thank you for taking time to do the presentation or the meeting or something along those lines. I found that quite effective, and I was very appreciative of the comments as well. So however you do it. Got to do it. Sometimes the fact that you did it and the others didn't, it could take you to the top. Everything else the same. And then always, and we've talked a little bit about this, always have prepared questions. And so prepared questions. So what questions should those be? Well, a couple things. Tell me a little bit more about the company. Tell me a little bit more about their commitment to the community. Tell me about why you enjoy working for the company. What are some of the things that you've enjoyed doing? And maybe tell me a little bit more about the benefits the company offers and maybe the next steps in the process. Because if you ask me, what are the next steps in the process, obviously I'll share those with you. If you tell me a little bit more about the company and why I enjoy it, I've got a lot of information to share with you about RBFCU. And if you ask me about the benefits as a recruiter, you're planting the seed is, wow, okay, this person is still interested in all the information that I've shared, but also the most important thing once you make an offer is the benefits, because the benefits is part of the overall offer. And I'll talk a little bit about, compensation and how that is sort of unwrapped, if you will. But again, have questions, practice interviewing recruiters, hiring managers, your career service center, friends and family. And why do I say friends and family? Because your friends and family know you better than anybody else, especially your family. They know the tone and inflection and the honesty and the commitment in your voice. They know when you want something and they know when you don't. So I say practice with family members. You can find interview questions out there all the time. And at the end of this interview session with them, this practice session, ask them, most importantly, do I sound real? Do I sound believable? Do you understand why I want this position? Do you understand why I chose this career path? Friends and family will help you get you in that right mindset with the tone and inflection of your voice to stand out when you do the interview. So hopefully those were just some of the things I think that will help you to be a more competitive candidate. There's definitely more, but I think these are the things that I've experienced over my career that will help you stand out, will help you to really engage with the recruiter and hiring manager. That will really help you to leave a first positive, memorable impression. So as we move forward, where are some of the locations for you to find your new career? Obviously, LinkedIn today more than ever before, companies are posting on LinkedIn. It is this professional networking website that RBFCU absolutely uses. You can find information about the company. You can find about events that are taking place and initiatives. People post how they've been, their next journey, their next step. I think it's a wonderful professional platform. Now, I also, companies do include employment opportunities there. So if you can download their mobile app, it can be on your phone. On the very right-hand corner, once you open the app, once you've done searches for employment opportunities, LinkedIn creates this algorithm, if you will. So if they see a position that may have met some of the search criteria that you input in the system, they'll start sending you jobs that are opening up. In fact, if you identify, the area, the location of where you want to work, if it's San Antonio, they'll send you just positions that you may be interested in based on prior career searches, if you will, employment opportunities on LinkedIn. It's pretty cool. So think about that. I think it's pretty unique, though. Years and years ago, that wasn't there. But now, as employers, I think it's critical. We need to continue to engage and commit to our employees and their career path opportunities, because if not, if you are on LinkedIn, somebody's sending you new job opportunities every single day. So it's a unique platform that we have. So we at RBFCU continue to engage all of our employees and look for ways that we can help them and grow. USA Jobs is another wonderful location where you can find employment opportunities. USA Jobs, many veterans across the country look at this. You can filter your searches, and it's important. The Workforce Commission in your local area. I have to tell you that this is a website that many companies are required to post their positions on because of their commitment to the local workforce and how they work with the Workforce Commission in San Antonio. I am very partial to this website, in addition to the RBFC website, because this is where I found my job at RBFCU many years ago. So definitely take a look at that. And, the Workforce Commission also offers many different career fairs. So something to consider. Handshake for sure is a great resource. I find that the Handshake website that Texas A&M San Antonio does use is a great place for employers to post their positions, especially if they have career fairs. You'll find events, you'll find employer profiles. You can include your own profiles, and I'm sure many of you already do that. but it's not going to be the most complete listing of all the jobs that are available for employers, because it's one extra step. And when I say that one extra step, Indeed.com is probably the most comprehensive website out there, because when RBFCU posts their positions on our own internal website, they automatically go to Indeed.com. We don't pay anything. Indeed has a relationship with our applicant tracking system called Workday, and I'll talk a little bit about that, Workday. And so automatically, overnight, probably several times a day, if you will, they get uploaded on Indeed very quickly. And if we fill the position, again, very quickly it comes down. So Indeed.com, if you haven't been there, you can actually post your resume, you can find salary information, you can find positions here in San Antonio, basically across the country. It's the most comprehensive website for employers, employment postings, but also for candidates to go to Indeed.com. There's a certain reason why that happened. Probably about 12, 13 years ago, during the financial crisis, if you will, Indeed was able to create this platform where they scraped all the jobs to these websites, and employers didn't have to pay. And so they've built their brand, and they're doing some really good things. And I know that we've worked with them as well. And again, where else can you find jobs? Career fairs. Texas A&M San Antonio has a career fair. You've got the Workforce Commission has a career fair. I want to say Job News has a career fair. And as things open up, you'll probably see more in-person career fairs, but you're also going to see more, you'll probably continue to see some virtual career fairs. So these are all locations where you can find your new career. Some of the upcoming virtual events and career fairs that I'm aware of, obviously, you've got the College Student Alumni Career Services. Talk with Misty about the things that are happening there, some of the other events, and the team that you have, phenomenal team with Karen Ivey and all the counselors and staff at your Career Service Center. I always say, reach out to them, call them, visit them, make them so busy that they need to hire more people. Why not? That they're there to help you find that job. Eventbrite, Career Echo, Brazen, Premier Virtual Career Fairs. These are all other locations where you can visit those locations. And if there's recruitment or there's career fairs that are going to take place, you can find them on those websites. Many times they'll designate certain communities, if you will, locations. So you could probably find career fairs that are going to be held on some of these virtual platforms. Most importantly, I would connect with your career services, because they've got the ins and outs, and they've already got the relationships with the employers that they work with on campus. Applicant tracking systems. Misty, are you okay if I talk a little bit about the applicant tracking systems?
Yeah, absolutely. We have till about 11:30. So, and no questions have come in yet. So if students, you do have questions, please send them in and we'll take some time at the end. But I think so far so good.
Awesome. Thank you, Misty. So the applicant tracking system, I talked a little bit about that. Ours is Workday. So the way it works is we have this system that helps us to recruit and to onboard all of our employees. In fact, Workday is the same applicant tracking system that is used by many employers in San Antonio, from Accenture Federal Services, USAA, Rackspace, SWBC. So it's called Workday, and it makes it easy because we post positions there, it automatically goes to Indeed. Not only there is, as individuals go to the website and they want to apply for a position, they create a username and profile on this Workday platform. And then it makes it easier for them to upload their resume, their cover letter, and then also to apply for subsequent positions that are out there. Now, here's some critical information. If you see even on the RBFCU website, there is two of the exact same positions, you have to apply to both. If you see two different positions that you are interested in, you have to apply to each one of those as well. And the reason I say that is we can only consider you as an applicant if you take the time to apply for each one of those requisitions, because the requisitions are different from even the same job postings, if you will. So give yourself more options. And one of the other reasons is we do not move the applications and candidates from one requisition to the other. Only you can manage that process. Also, when you are submitting your application, please review it for completeness, answer the questions, and accuracy. Again, some of the general things that I'm sure you will do, and you've heard it from others. And then once you've applied, don't hesitate to go back and revisit the employer website. Today, more than ever before, we're adding new roles and responsibilities daily. We're filling positions daily, but we're adding new roles. And in fact, if you see a position that you've already applied to, but it's a new requisition, and you can see that, apply to the new requisition as well. If you haven't, gone through an interview at this point, don't hesitate to do that. Give yourself more options. So the recruiter is going to, get a requisition. The recruiter is going to post this position on their applicant tracking system on Workday. We're going to upload it into the system. And then as soon as they upload it, the recruiter wants to fill it as quickly as they possibly can. And so they're going to start reviewing the applications. And they're going to start looking at candidates and identify those that meet the requirements, right? And they're going to make their initial selection. Once they make that initial selection, they're going to start calling the applicants. Why? Again, I shared it before. They're calling you. They're going to do a phone interview. Their intent is to make a follow-up interview. They don't have to. So you've got to be ready. You've got to be prepared. Do your research on the company. Leave that first positive, memorable impression if you're not there. Their intent is to take the next steps, but it's up to you. Then if you do move on, it's going to be a department interview, typically with the recruiter also and staff members from that department. Once those interviews are complete, then there's going to be a selection process. They're going to look at the applicants who meet the requirements, who they can see that is the best fit for the company, who has left that first positive, memorable impression, who own their interview and truly is interviewing for the position they've applied to. And once they've determined that, what was it that led you to stand out? They make the offer. They're going to look to make you an offer. So what does that mean? Again, now this is the second most missed question in interview. What's your salary expectation? What are you looking to make? You've had that conversation. And so based on your response, they're able to move forward with an offer. So what should it be? How should you respond to that question? Do your research, have a range, be negotiable, ask them about the benefits, have them sell you again. If you've done that and this position doesn't pay what you're looking for or what you need, well, then you're probably not going through this process. You probably didn't even interview for the position. But if you did, do your research, be negotiable, turn it back on them to talk about the benefits. Because if you ask me as a recruiter, can you tell me a little bit more? I'm negotiable. This is exactly the position I'm looking for. I want to tell you about the benefits at RBFCU. Medical, dental, and vision from day one of employment. A health and wellness program that continues to grow. We offer employees to participate in health and wellness activities throughout San Antonio, and we pay for that. An end of year bonus, depending on how well we've done at an organization. A 401k plan that I believe is one of the best in San Antonio. You put in 4%, we'll put in another 8% on top of your 4. If you put in 6, we'll put in 10. Significant paid time off. In a full-time position, you would have earned about 22 days of paid time off. If you don't use it, you don't lose it. You can accrue up to 600 hours. So we're fortunate, but I want to tell you about those benefits. And by the way, Misty, I don't know if I shared this with you. Did I tell you that RBFC was just rated the #1 company to work for in San Antonio?
You may have mentioned it
maybe once, right? But all kidding aside, this is part of the research. You should have already known that. And then once we make the offer, and if it's accepted and we meet, there's a background check that we go through. And then ultimately, because you've completed and fill out an application through the Workday system, there's an onboarding process. Today, we're still doing that virtually, but then we do meet with all of our new employees. That's sort of the life cycle, if you will. Current employment opportunities, I'm going to tell you very quickly that 2.5 years ago, and I think you've probably heard this before, the unemployment rate was between 2.7% to 3.2% right here in this beautiful city of San Antonio. Through the pandemic, in the midst of the pandemic, it went very close to 13 and may have hit that 13% unemployment. We have seen it slowly start to come back down. We've seen patches where it's gone back up, but the last indication I just received yesterday, it looks like it's now right at about 4.9%. So it's gone back down. It's significant. So companies are recruiting and hiring. You can see now hiring everywhere in San Antonio, at campuses, on really on campuses, right throughout San Antonio. They're recruiting and hiring employers in restaurants, and you name it. It is more competitive now because of the lower unemployment rate. Companies are offering more compensation. I just shared with Misty that RBFCU just increased their minimum rate, so nobody makes anything less than $18 an hour. That's a $6,000 increase from our previous minimum rate was $15 an hour. So nobody makes any less. That's just the beginning though, right? It doesn't include any overtime. It doesn't include the end of year bonus if we're so fortunate to receive that. It doesn't include our 401k contribution. And it doesn't include the health and wellness that we offer. It's the whole package, right? You got to think about it, the whole package. So $18 an hour, it's competitive. We always look to make the best offer we possibly can. And obviously, depending on the position, there's different ranges that we offer. So I'm excited to do that. But that's not all. In some of the positions currently posted, if you accept the offer, there is a sign-on bonus. I think for some of our really sought after position, there's a $250 sign-on bonus. If you complete 90 days of training, there's another $500 sign-on bonus. And then when you complete training, there's another $500 sign-on bonus. So again, we are excited and committed to move forward. Why? Because we need to continue to grow, but more than that, we need to provide, I think, the member service and our commitment to our members, and we need that to continue. And so that's where we are as far as the employment cycle and where we are. Again, these are things that we hope that will open your eyes and will give you some assistance in being that most competitive candidate. So with that, is there any questions, Misty?
Actually not at this time. If students, you want to put in the chat, or if you want to unmute and ask questions, I'm actually going to just stop the recording. But before I do that, Glenn, just thank you so much. Your wisdom in all of this is so invaluable and, you know, so spot on for the times and for everything to help these students be successful. So thank you so much for your time today and for your insights. Really appreciate it, and just love working with you every time we get a chance to.
Misty, thank you. I know that, you know, we together have been engaged in this process through the pandemic, and I can't thank you enough on behalf of RBFCU for allowing us to continue the collaboration and support of your wonderful students and the community of San Antonio. My door is always open. At the end, I'll give them my contact information. But I truly enjoy working with this, and thank you for giving me a chance to help your students be more competitive in this wonderful city that we call San Antonio.
Awesome.